Okay, so AI image generation. It's everywhere you look now, but it's gotten kind of complicated.
Yeah, it's not just about making a cool picture anymore, is it?
Not at all. Now it's like dot subscriptions and pricing tiers and all this stuff. Like, how do you even know where to start?
Well, luckily there's some guides out there, and that's what this whole deep dive is about, right?
Exactly. We're diving into this article from popular AI tools. It's called How to Identify the Best Value for AI Image Generation Using Our Calculator.
Catchy title.
Right. So basically, we're going to break down how to actually navigate the costs of all this AI art stuff.
Which is important because, like you said, things change so fast in this field. What you knew like a month ago might be totally different now.
Yeah, exactly. So is this all about just like finding the cheapest option? Or what are we really looking for here?
Well, the article makes a really good point that understanding the cost isn't just about like being cheap, you know? It's about making a smart decision for what you're actually trying to do.
Okay, so how does that work with like AI image generation, though?
Well, think about it. Like,
Hmm.
you wouldn't just buy the cheapest paint you can find if you're an artist, right? You'd think about what you're making and the
Yeah.
quality you need, all of that.
Right, like sometimes that cheap paint ends up costing you way more in the long run if it means you have to start over.
Exactly. So with AI image generation, it's about finding that platform and that pricing model that actually fits what you want to do.
Which is tough because there are so many options now. So is that where this whole AI image generation cost calculator comes in, the one the article keeps mentioning?
Yeah, they actually have this whole calculator thing, and it's really cool. You can put in your specific needs, like how many images you need, what resolution, if you want a subscription.
Okay, so it's way more than just like, what's the cheapest platform then? You really have to think about it.
Yeah, it's more like figuring out the value. What are you actually getting?
Makes sense. So the article also gets into some specific platforms, like it talks about DALL-E 3 and Midjourney. What's the deal with those?
So those are two of the big ones right now, and they're interesting because they do things kind of differently when it comes to pricing. Like DALL-E 3 has this tiered pricing model based on resolution and stuff.
Tiered pricing, huh?
Yeah,
So is that like choosing how fancy you want your AI art to be?
kinda. You're basically deciding, okay, do I need this image to be super high quality or can it be a little more basic? And the price changes based on that.
So you have some control there, which is cool. What about Midjourney? How does that work?
So Midjourney is interesting because they're all about that subscription life.
Like Netflix for AI art.
Yeah, exactly. They have these different tiers, and you pay monthly to get a certain number of images you can make.
But I guess makes sense if you're like using AI art all the time for work or something.
Right. It's like built for people who are really going to use it a lot. Although I guess the downside is you got to make sure you actually USE all those images every month.
Or else it's like that gym membership you never actually use.
Exactly. But okay, let's say you're not sure yet if you're ready to commit to a whole subscription thing.
Yeah, like what if I just want to dip my toes in the water first?
That's where the free trials come in, which is something the article talks about too.
Okay, because free trials are the best.
Right. And some of these platforms have really good free tiers where you can get a feel for how they work before you got to pay anything.
That's awesome. What about this whole open source thing? The article mentions that.
Yeah, so open source is a whole other world. Basically, it means the code behind the AI is like public,
So anyone could just take it and use it.
pretty much. And a lot of people do, which is why you have these platforms like Stable Diffusion is one of them.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
It's super popular and it's completely free to use, which is awesome. But,
There's always a but.
well, it's a trade-off, right? Because with open source, you often need to be a little more tech savvy to get things set up.
Ah, so it's a less user-friendly.
It can be. It's kind of like the difference between ordering a coffee at a cafe versus like roasting your own beans at home.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So open source is more hands-on, but potentially way cheaper.
Exactly. And sometimes that's worth it if you want to have that much control over it.
This is making me realize there's a lot more to this decision than I thought. It's not just like, what's the cheapest? It's like, what's actually going to work for how I want to use it?
And how comfortable you are with the tech side of things too, right?
Totally. So besides the cost, what else should we be thinking about when we're comparing these platforms?
Ooh, good question. There's actually a few things.
Okay, so besides the cost, what other things should we be looking at?
Well, it's like you were saying before about the cheap paint. Even if it's cheap, it doesn't mean it's the right paint for the job, right?
Okay, so we're back to the paint.
Yeah.
I like it. What's the AI art equivalent of that?
So like one thing to think about is what kind of style does the platform actually do well? Some of them are really good at making things look like a photo, and others are more about a certain look.
Ah, okay, so like, even though it's AI making the art, You still want it to kind of match your style.
Exactly. And then another thing is, how much control do you actually have over the process? Like with some of these platforms, you put in your prompt, and that's kind of it. But others let you tweak things, try different variations.
Oh, so you can get more hands-on if you want to.
Yeah, it's like, do you want a coloring book or do you want the whole set of paints and brushes?
I'm more of a gimme all the colors kind of person, but I guess that comes with a price too, right?
Often, yeah. The more control and the more features a platform has, usually the more it costs. But that doesn't always mean it's better. It just depends what you need.
So true. Okay, so all this is great, but now I'm curious about the future. Where do you think this is all going? Like with the cost of AI image generation? Is it just going to keep getting more expensive?
Actually, the article kind of hints that it might go the opposite way.
Really?
It's possible because as this tech gets better and more companies are doing it, that usually means prices go down, right? Competition and all that.
Makes sense. Cheaper AI art. I'm here for it.
Right. And the cool thing is, not only might it get cheaper, but the quality might even get better for that price.
Yeah.
Because the AI models that power all this stuff, they're constantly learning and improving.
So it's like the same price gets you even more amazing art in the future.
Potentially. But here's the thing that I thought was really interesting. The article mentioned something called personalized pricing.
Okay, now that sounds fancy. What is that?
So imagine a subscription, but instead of everyone getting the same plan, they actually look at how you use it.
Like how many images I make, what kind of features I use.
Exactly. And then they give you a price based on that. So it's like a custom plan just for you.
That's wild. That's like next level stuff.
It is pretty futuristic, but I think it just shows how much things are changing. Even just how we pay for this stuff is going to be different soon.
So we've talked about the cost, we've talked about the features, and even how the pricing might change. That's a lot to think about.
It is, but at the end of the day, the big question is, what are people going to create with this? Because the tools are cool, but it's really up to the artists to actually do something with it.
That's such a good point to end on. It's not about the tech, it's about the creativity. Well, on that note, thanks for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the crazy world of AI image generation. And be sure to tune in next time for more deep dives on all sorts of cool AI stuff.